What happens when the deepest wounds don't come from strangers, but from the people who share your blood? In the quiet town of Nsuka, where morning smell of roasted plantain and red soil warms under the rising sun, two sisters live side by side, one loved loudly, the other quietly breaking. From the outside, they were inseparable. But behind the smiles, something darker was growing. Grace, the bright one, the calm one, the daughter whose name everyone praised. And Mary, the shadow beside the sun, watching her sister rise higher and higher while her own world sank deeper into silence. No one knew what Mary was fighting. Not her parents. Not the neighbors. Not even Grace. Until one morning. A cup of tea, a trembling hand, and a single, deadly secret threatened to shatter the entire family. This isn't just a story about jealousy. It's a story about pain misunderstood, a heart crying for attention, and a sister pushed so far into the shadows that she believed hurting the one she loved was the only way to be seen. Before truth came, before tears, confession, and forgiveness, there was Mary, a girl battling storms no one noticed. And Grace, the sister she almost lost. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Is it morning in Nairobi, evening in London, or midnight in Lagos? Drop your location in the comments below, hit like, and subscribe to Stories by the King, where every story carries a heartbeat, and every truth holds a lesson. Now, lean in. Because this story isn't just about a sister who tried to poison her own blood. It's about the truth that shook an entire family to its core. The small town of Nsuka always woke slowly, as if stretching its arms after long dreams. For years, the Johnson family had lived quietly at the edge of the old marketplace, where red soil met the scent of roasting plantain. Grace Johnson, the older sister, carried herself like the morning itself, calm, steady, the kind of girl whose presence slowed the world down. Her younger sister, Mary, was the opposite, sharp-eyed, restless, always moving as if running from something unseen. Even as children, their mother would laugh and say, one was born with the sun, the other with the wind. But on this particular morning, something about Mary's eyes carried a shadow. Grace didn't notice it at first. She was busy preparing the family breakfast, humming softly as she set the table. Yet Mary kept glancing at her, quick, guilty looks, the kind that tried to hide themselves. Something had changed, though neither sister had the words for it yet. It was the kind of silence that sits in a house like a stranger. Later that afternoon, both sisters walked to the community well. Grace skipped stones on the surface of the water, laughing as the ripples stretched wide. Mary only watched her, the wind lifting strands of her braided hair. You always make everything look easy, Mary muttered quietly. Grace didn't hear, or maybe she didn't want to. She kept smiling, too brightly, almost nervously. She had sensed Mary's distance growing these past months, but she didn't know where it came from or how to reach her. Still, she tried, saying, "You've been quiet." Mary shrugged, forcing a smile. Just thinking. Thinking, but about what? Standing at the well, Mary's hand curled tightly around the small packet hidden inside her pocket. A packet she wasn't supposed to have. Something dangerous enough to ruin everything. She swallowed hard, and in the distance thunder rolled. The storm was close. By evening, the Johnson house glowed with warm lantern light. Their father, Mr. Johnson, returned from work tired but cheerful, lifting Grace off her feet in a hug. Mary stood aside, staring at them with something tangled in her chest, envy, longing, fear. At dinner, Grace laughed loudly, talking about a new job opportunity she hoped to secure. Their parents celebrated her dreams with joyful claps. And Mary quietly crushed the packet deeper into her pocket. Grace noticed the stiffness in her sister's posture, the tension in her smile. She reached for her hand under the table, but Mary pulled away. Something was breaking, and Grace could feel it. She just didn't know how deep the crack already went. And as the lantern flickered, casting strange shadows on Mary's face, one thing became clear: this was only the beginning of a storm none of them saw coming. And when Mary rose from the table that night, the decision she made would change everything. The next morning arrived heavy with clouds. Grace woke early, humming softly as usual, preparing tea for everyone. Mary stood in the doorway, holding the small packet again. Her hand trembled, yet her jaw was firm. Just a little, she whispered to herself. Just enough to make her sick, not enough to kill. She wanted Grace to fail her job interview. She wanted the attention for once. She wanted their parents to finally look at her with the same pride they gave Grace. So, with shaking hands, Mary sprinkled the powder into Grace's tea, stirring until it disappeared like it had never existed. Her heart pounded. She heard footsteps approaching. And then, for the first time in days, Grace's voice, soft, warm: "Mary, you're up early." Mary forced a smile. Just wanted to help. Grace smiled gratefully and walked away with the tea, leaving Mary frozen in place. Was this really what she wanted? Her legs felt weak. Minutes later, Grace lifted the cup to her lips, then stopped. Something felt wrong. The tea smelled slightly different. She frowned, turning the cup slowly in her hand. Meanwhile, Mary stood behind the doorway, breath held, heart racing. Mr. Johnson entered the room then, greeting Grace with a bright smile. He noticed her expression. "Everything all right?" he asked. Grace hesitated. Then, in a sudden moment of generosity she didn't think twice about, she stretched the cup toward him. "Papa, you take it. I'm running late." Mary's entire body jolted. "No," she shouted, startling both of them. She rushed forward, grabbing the cup so fast it spilled across the table. Grace stared at her, confused. Mr. Johnson looked stunned. Mary stammered, I thought it was too hot. I didn't want you to burn yourself." Her voice was shaky. Her father chuckled lightly, accepting the explanation. But Grace looked closer at Mary's hands; they were trembling violently. Hours later, Grace returned early from her interview, pale and shaken. She entered Mary's room silently, closing the door behind her. Mary stiffened as Grace sat beside her on the bed. "I know something is wrong," Grace said softly. "You've been distant. Angry. But I don't know why. Tell me." Mary looked away, tears threatening. She whispered, "You wouldn't understand." "Try me," Grace said, gently lifting her chin. And for a moment, Mary almost confessed. Almost. But instead, Mary's voice hardened. "You always get everything. Everything. And I'm invisible." Grace felt the words like a blade. She reached out, but Mary swatted her hand away. "Just leave me alone," Mary whispered. "Please." Grace stood quietly, her heart breaking. She walked to the door, paused, and said, "Mary, no matter what you're carrying, you don't have to carry it alone." Then she left. And Mary sat trembling, wondering how far down she had already sunk, and whether she still had a way back. But the truth of why Mary did what she did was deeper, darker, and more heartbreaking than anyone could imagine. The storm finally broke that night. Rain hammered the roof as the Johnson family gathered in the sitting room to pray, something they always did when the skies opened. But Mary couldn't focus. The guilt had swollen inside her until she felt she might burst. Again and again, her mind replayed the moment she almost allowed her father to drink the poison tea. After prayers, Grace approached her, eyes soft, voice steady. "Mary, what's going on?" This time Mary didn't fight. Her knees buckled as she collapsed into Grace's arms, sobbing so deeply it shook her whole body. Grace held her, frightened but firm. "Talk to me, please." Between broken breaths, Mary whispered, "I tried to hurt you." Their mother gasped from across the room. Mr. Johnson stood slowly, eyes wide. But Mary wasn't done. "I didn't mean to kill you," she cried. "I just wanted you to fail your interview. I wanted them to look at me the way they look at you. I wanted to be seen. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Silence filled the room, thick, suffocating, heartbreaking. Grace sank to her knees in front of her sister, cupping Mary's face gently. "Mary," she whispered, "you are not invisible. Not to me. Not to anyone. We just didn't listen closely enough." Mary wept harder. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not," Grace said softly. "But forgiveness is not something we earn, it's something we give." She pulled Mary into her arms, and their mother began crying too. Mr. Johnson approached slowly, placing a trembling hand on Mary's shoulder. "My child," he said, voice breaking, "you should have told us you were hurting." "I was afraid," Mary whispered. "We all are," he said gently. The family did not shout. They did not punish. They held her. They listened. They made space for the pain she had buried. And for the first time in a long while, Mary felt seen, not for her mistakes, but for her wounded heart. Weeks passed. Grace recovered emotionally. Mary began therapy through the church counseling program. Both sisters rebuilt their bond brick by brick, slowly, painfully, honestly. Grace got the job she interviewed for. Mary started her own baking business, something she had always dreamed of but never believed she deserved. And one quiet evening, as the sun dipped behind the marketplace, Grace wrapped her arm around Mary's shoulders and whispered, "You almost destroyed us, but in the end, the truth saved us." Mary nodded, tears glistening, but for once, they weren't tears of guilt. They were tears of renewal. In the end, the poison wasn't the real danger. The real danger was the silence. The quiet suffering Mary carried alone, unseen, unheard, and misunderstood. What almost destroyed the Johnson family became the very thing that brought them closer. Not because the act was small, but because the truth was bigger. Grace didn't heal overnight. Mary didn't forgive herself in a day. And their parents didn't suddenly become perfect. But together, they made room for honesty. For fragile confessions, trembling apologies, and the kind of forgiveness that only love can give. Mary wasn't evil. She was hurting. Grace wasn't perfect. She was unaware. And the family wasn't broken. Just blind to the storm inside their own home. But storms don't only destroy. Sometimes, they wash away the lies. Sometimes they reveal the wounds. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to face them, they guide you back home. Mary found her healing. Grace found her sister again. And the Johnson family discovered a truth many homes never learn. Jealousy can poison. But love, when given room to breathe, can resurrect what almost died. Now it's your turn. If this story touched something deep inside you, tell me in the comments. Which moment hit your heart the hardest? And don't forget, hit like, share this story, and subscribe to Stories by the King, where every story carries a heartbeat. And every ending brings a lesson worth remembering.